Let's pop this off and see exactly what we can find. Whoa, spinning them all. Is there a somewhat reliable performance model Audi? Wow, we were just ripping all 4 tires. That's 60. Hatchbacks, man, oh man, do I love me a good hatchback. I love how usable they are, and this is my turbo Trans Am all loaded up for a camping trip, which is a totally normal thing to do with a car that'll pull the front wheels off the ground at the drag strip. Totally normal, and I've never done this before, but apparently this signifies the pulling of those wheels from the ground. Now, when I bought my P85D Model S, the fact that it was a large 4-door car with a hatch was huge for me. I now have a big car I can throw a bunch of crap into whenever I wanted, but the Tesla, as much as I love it, has its limitations. Now, most people would say range, but as a car guy that understands my commute, it's not range. For me, it's the fact that I really can't modify that car for even better performance than it has. But you know, a big 4-door hatch that you can modify to ridiculous performance levels? An Audi RS7, and this one specifically is heavily modified. It has over 800 horsepower. It easily runs a mid to low 10-second quarter mile, and this was a sweet auction find that just sold for about what a normal one sells for. And the hatch is huge. You can fit like a baby horse back here, or if you're from Chicago or New York, a baby horse is equivalent to about 8 5'10" Italian dudes like me. All right, so like I said, this 2016 RS7 just came from the auction, and my guy Frank over at Mancuso Motorsports gave me a call right away. This is the same place that had that supercharged E63 from a couple of videos ago. What's cool about this car is that its performance modifications are somewhat of a mystery, and we think this might have been kind of like a beta test car for APR. Now, of course, I'm sure the previous owner, someone that knows something about this car, will comment down below. We're going to try and discover exactly what's been done to this car. I have a little bit of information that the guys were able to get from APR, but basically there is a very good possibility this is a low 10-second car. This one in particular could potentially have dipped into the 9s with the amount of power it has. So in this video, we're going to be driving this car. We're going to be exploring what is exactly done to this car, and of course, I'm going to go over exactly what they paid for it at the auction and about what they're going to be selling it for as well. But first, check out how awesome the factory-style workshop repair manuals are for the Audis. Now, I get one of these for every car I own, so all my Mercedes, all my American stuff, and they are fantastic and only about $20 and available for practically any car in existence, so I'll definitely leave a link for you down below. But sometimes I geek out over car repairs on cars that I don't even own, so in this case, I was wondering how hard would it be to remove and install engine mounts on an RS7, and take a look at these instructions. They give you colored pictures. They literally have arrows that point to every single bolt that needs to be removed. So step-by-step instructions, no guesswork. And if there's a part of the instruction you don't understand, they give you a little subcategory. You click on it, in this case, how to remove and install the drive shaft, and they show you exactly how to do it. So of course you get all the torque specs. They tell you about any special tools that you may need, and this is the best money you will ever spend in the garage. So I hope this really helps you out. Check out the link down below. And by the way, doing engine mounts on an RS7 is a total nightmare. You got to remove the whole front subframe. Not a fun job at all. Let's go right into the hatch, the area that I love so much about this car, because we have a tank back here, and this isn't something you normally see on a car like this. A lot of these just have a tune on them, and that's about it. And this one has a water methanol injection tank. So before we drive this thing, we have to check out if there's anything in here, because this just came from the auction. It might have been sitting for a while. Who really knows? And let's see. Yeah, you can kind of, I know it's hard to tell, but there is some fluid in here. And let me smell it. Oh yeah, that smells like 100% methanol. So some people run a washer fluid or a mix. That smells very strong. It smells like methanol to me. I have it on the Trans Am. So that's some pretty serious stuff right there. And something else we learned is that this has the 2 fuel pumps upgraded in the car as well, which is not a common modification you see on your typical tuned or even downpiped RS7. Obviously, this RS7 is wrapped, and personally, I'm not into matte or flat wraps, but this does look like a pretty good job. And the wheels on this car
are massive. They're 21-inch HREs. I looked these up. They are about $2,500 each, and they're wrapped in what looks to be new Michelin Pilot Sport. So you have roughly about $12,000 or so in wheels and tires on this car, which is crazy. Now, the brakes look new as well, and something you guys will notice, these are not carbon ceramic. This is not the Performance RS7. This is the normal one. But these are a wave rotor design. So if you guys see right here, this little dip, and then it goes all the way around the rotor. That's called a wave design rotor. That came from motorcycles. And around the time that Audi started implementing these on performance cars was, I think, roughly the time that they bought Ducati. So with a wave design rotor, this helps with weight. I think these weigh like about 9 pounds less or something along those lines than a factory rotor that would be about this same size. And they dissipate more heat. That is the whole idea. And you'll see a lot of these performance Audis with wave rotors. So pretty cool. Massive brakes on this car. Again, not the carbon ceramics, but I think these are going to do fine for 99.9% of the people out there driving one of these things around. Under the hood of these first generation RS7s is an amazing direct injected twin turbo 4-liter V8. And there are a couple different trims to this car. There is a normal RS7 like this one, and then there's a performance version, believe it or not, which gives you an additional 45 horsepower by way of slightly larger turbochargers, some ECU tuning. I think there's some cooling upgrades and some other things like that. But this car has all of that upgraded and more. So this is going to put out way more power than even the performance version RS7. So let's take a look at what we can find under the hood, because again, this is kind of like a mystery auction car. This was sold at the auction, and it was just listed that it had performance mods in general. So they didn't specify anything, probably because they didn't know exactly what was done to this car, and that's why it was traded into a normal dealership for God knows what. I don't know what this person bought, but it amazes me that enthusiast and modified enthusiast cars like this are just traded in at the dealer, where that actually devalues the car even more than when you're selling it privately. So a dealership does not want to hear anything about modifications. That is a factory dealership. So let's pop this off and see exactly what we can find. And hold on a second. That was all right. That's pretty easy. And right off the bat, we can see that they did something with the air intake tubes. Now, this is not factory. Some would say this is sucking in a bunch of hot air, but with the methanol injection and the fact that this has a really good water-to-air intercooler system, I don't think that's going to make any difference at all. But right away, I see that we have some stuff going on right here. So this is some kind of sensor. I'm not exactly sure what it is, possibly with the fuel. Oh, and check this out. I have this exact one on my Turbo Trans Am. So this is a solenoid for the Wastegate. So this is for a boost controller. So this is going to go to a boost source. It has a little intake right here. And then right here, we have a tile wastegate. So this isn't a blow-off valve like you may think. This has a line going here for boost reference, and that is going to dictate how much boost these turbos pump out. So we have another one right here, and as you can see, the rod here is connected to the turbocharger. So we have different wastegates on this car. We have a wastegate controller, a boost controller on this car. We have some AN fittings here with some steel braided lines, and I'm going to assume that has something to do with the fuel system. So this has an upgraded low and high pressure pump. This is direct injected, so insane fuel pressures from this, but it has upgraded pumps. That's a big time mod when you have a car like this. Most of these cars just have a stage 1 or 2 tune. Maybe they did the downpipes, but once you start dipping into fuel system modifications, you are getting serious. So speaking of downpipes, we can tell right away that this has aftermarket downpipes. So here are the turbochargers, which we found out were upgraded. So these are going to look basically the same on the outside, but the internals have been modified. So it probably has a larger turbine wheel on the exhaust side, a billet compressor wheel on the intake or cold side. And I'm going to assume that these are catless downpipe. That's what most guys go with, and they are coated, so very, very expensive. So this car was $60,000 and some change from the dealer auction. And then with fees and with shipping, it came out to about $63,000. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with RS7 prices, don't worry, neither was I, but that is basically what a stock one goes for. This only has 42,000 miles. It's a 2016, so not very old at all. This one, as of right now. I don't know the exact price on it because they just got this in there, but by the time this video goes up, I'll leave a link down below if you guys want to check it out. By the time this goes up in a few days, they'll have the pricing. This, just like that supercharged E63, I think is an amazing deal because it probably has roughly $25,000 to $30,000 in well-done modifications, and it looks to be in really, really nice condition. So anyway, guys, let's go take this thing for a ride. And first, let's go see what this sounds like compared to what I believe to be a stock one. It's obviously crazy loud, but when it's just sitting here and idled down, it's really not bad. It's basically stock. And it's probably because it looks to have the factory mufflers. So I think the rest of the exhaust has been swapped out, but with the factory mufflers, so that pretty much makes sense. Let's go for a ride. All right, the engine is all warmed up. My first ride in the RS7. All right, I'm just gonna try a little roller here. Open road. Guys, we broke traction. This is all-wheel drive. It broke traction at like 5,000 RPM, but it stays wherever you want it. Oh man, this thing is wicked. It is so different than a lot of the cars I'm used to. My turbo Trans Am, big V8 with a turbo and an automatic with a big stall converter, so it's like instantaneous. And then obviously my E55, my C63, and the supercharged. Well, hang on a second. Oh, Jesus Christ almighty. How is this even doing that? It shifts at like 7,500 RPM. Wow, this is so different though, like especially compared to the supercharged E63 that I drove a couple weeks ago or whatever. The power on that car is just right off the line, instantaneous. This one, you can feel some turbo lag. And I'm gonna say it might just be in the tuning because it would just rip all four tires loose. So they might have just done that on purpose. So you have a chance at traction control. And speaking of that, it is kicking on. So that could be kind of slowing us down as well. But oh my gosh, when this gets into boost and traction, it's mind boggling. So this car, it's a very good chance this is like a low 10-second car, so we don't have the exact specs. Again, check the comment section down below because I guarantee you the person that owned this car, someone that knows about this car, is going to comment. In fact, with the E63, the guy that had all the work done ended up reaching out to me by email. And then the guy that bought it ended up reaching out to me by email or Facebook Messenger as well, which is really, really cool. When I drive one of these cars, I end up learning so much about them. But anyway, oh, I mean, it holds the, yes, it expects you to get right back into it. That is awesome. I'm gonna assume the transmission is tuned as well. And guys, this is not a dual clutch or anything like this. This has a torque converter. This is an 8-speed automatic. And even though some other Audi cars would have the dual clutch, they claim that this car just makes too much power for that transmission. So this does have a torque converter, but it launches like a bat out of hell the way that it is right now. So I'm not sure how much good launch control would do. Maybe if you had slicks on all four, it would help out. But this is wicked, wicked fast. And we're gonna test out 0 to 60. That's 60. Okay, hang on. 3.4. That was 3.4, 0 to 60. It's really cold out too. I think it's like 30 something degrees out in Chicago, and we were spinning on that one, and it still did 3.4. So that's just so cool on these all-wheel drive cars. In most real-world situations, and this goes with my Tesla as well, especially to 60, these things just dominate, especially if you just have rear-wheel drive. So you might have a car like a CTS-V or whatever that's rear-wheel drive still, and it might put out more power. It might be more impressive on paper as far as numbers, but 0 to 60 and real world, when you're actually driving around town, whatever, these all-wheel drive cars just kill. That's why the GTR was so popular. So, and let's turn off Traction control on. That was 60 like 10 seconds ago. Oh my gosh, let's see what we got. 3.4 again, dead consistent. This car from the factory I think is rated in like the mid to upper threes. I'm sure with these mods, it was slipping off the line. It spins all 4 of these 21-inch wheels, but if we can get traction, there's no doubt in my mind this would be low threes. I think some guys have gotten into the high twos. And as far as what this car would run like in the quarter mile, a lot of these, the APR Stage 2 cars, just with a tune and maybe some downpipes, are running mid 10-second quarter miles, low 10 seconds. But this one has different turbochargers. It has the methanol injection, which I definitely checked before we took off, as you guys saw, because I've tuned my Trans Am on methanol injection, and some of these cars are dependent on it. I don't know if this one is. So with my Trans Am, if I were to go wide open throttle and beat on it with an empty tank, it would have about 20% less fuel than normal, and it would go lean and blow up. So I know that's not really safe, but I tuned my own car so I can monitor all this stuff. So I wanted to make sure we had meth in this car before we go romping on it, and we do. Everything seems fine. It runs like a top. So let's talk about the mystery a little bit of this car. So Frank picked it up at the dealership auction. It said it had some modifications done to it, which it does. He looked into the pictures and kind of was able to zoom in and see that maybe this had some turbocharger work or something a little bit more serious. He saw those fuel lines and stuff going on, so he took a chance on it. And when he got it here, you guys just saw what we found. That was the first time I looked at it too. So the guys reached out to APR. They don't really give out a ton of information, rightfully so. They don't want other people knowing what are done to other customers' cars. Now, because this was clearly bought at auction, they were able to prove that and stuff. They gave us a little bit, but they still wouldn't totally tell us exactly what was done to this car. But one of the guys at Mancuso's hooked up their scanner. He has a tool, the specific tool, so that you can upload a tune to the Audis, and normally it'll read just clearly, you know, APR Stage 1 or some other companies, it'll just say the type of tune. And this one just had a bunch of numbers and letters. It looked like a beta file, like maybe something they were testing out, which is what they hinted at APR, is that this was like kind of an in-house car. Eventually it was sold to someone, but it was an in-house car that maybe they were doing some testing on. So they wouldn't really release much more than that, other than the fact that it does have upgraded turbos in the downpipes. They were able to verify that. They didn't give us power numbers. I'm hoping one of you guys will comment down below, and then I'll pin the comment. But some of these cars, the APR Stage 2 on their website, I think it's rated at like 715 horse on 93, and then like 761 crank on 100 octane. There is no doubt that this car probably has that to the wheels. So this could be an 800, 850 horsepower car with the upgraded fuel and turbochargers and all that good stuff and methanol injection. So these cars can go 9s. They're 4,400 pounds, but it is possible. Oh man, it's got that crack popple tune thing, whatever it's called. It is possible for a car like this to go 9 seconds. What's cool is this is the first generation. It's been replaced now with a second generation RS7, but I just don't see the performance really becoming obsolete anytime soon. And I think we've reached kind of a pinnacle in general with cars. Like, how much faster are they going to get? Are we going to have factory cars with 1,200 horsepower running 8 seconds in the quarter mile? Maybe, but eventually tires and stuff will limit us. And the new RS7 is obviously awesome, but like this one, with just some minor easy modifications like a tune and some exhaust, they are absolutely wicked. And then especially the one like this one with air suspension, you can get them with a different suspension that are steel coils that ride a little rougher. They drive like, this one drives like a dream. It's a total luxury car. It's massive. Like I was showing, you could fit whatever you want in there, including a bunch of dead bodies. So huge fan of just this general layout. And I don't think Audi calls it a hatchback. You guys have probably already corrected me. It's a sportback or whatever. Just kind of an oddball layout here with it being a hatchback and a large 4-door car. It's very similar to my Tesla, actually, as far as the layout and size and everything like that. And here is the 0 to 60 readout. So 3.47. The first one was 3.49. And I'm using a V-Box Sport. It's just connected to an iPhone that I bought, an iPhone 5 or something, just specifically to use with the V-Box because it only works with Apple. But this is a V-Box Sport. This is the same stuff they use in Road and Track magazine, Car and Driver, all that stuff to test up different performance stuff so you can do lap times and whatnot. Really accurate, uses GPS. So I was playing around with some of the settings here, and engine and transmission has comfort, auto, and dynamic. So we were in comfort. So I put it to dynamic. I think that's our best bet, and put everything else basically to dynamic as well. So we have the differential. So this has torque vectoring, engine sound, Not sure if that's going to work with the special exhaust we have. Anyway, let's go see what 0 to 60 is now. Wow, we were just ripping all 4 tires, just totally broke loose. 3.31, and that was spinning all 4 tires for a long time. 3.31. I've done this a couple times now. We're easily into the 3.3s, and that is still with a little bit of lag off the line. I think with some practice and definitely some stickier tires, you can get into the high 2-second range to 60. What I like about these torque converter cars is that you can preload the drivetrain. So if you have a manual trans or one of these dual clutch type of cars, it's kind of a big shock right off the line, which is, you know, good for launching if you got sticky tires. But it's pretty brutal on the car. And some cars, actually, it'll void your warranty if you use the launch control too many times, which is crazy because it's a feature on the car. So with this, since you are just preloading that drivetrain, there isn't that big of a shock. I think you could do this a lot, and it'll prolong kind of the life of the transmission even at this amount of power. Ridiculously fast car, insanely comfortable car. I think a great value. I know some of the cars I show on my channel are just really, really cheap, and this one's a little bit more expensive, but keep in mind, it's only 3 years old. So some of you guys have been asking when I'm gonna get a performance Audi on the channel. Some of you have been saying I need to diversify a little bit. I have too many Mercedes on the channel, which I love. That'll never change. But I would argue that I do have a lot of diversification on my channel. I have a Tesla that I bought wrecked at the auction that I'll be using as a daily driver once it's done. It's over at Mancuso's body shop right now, getting the roof done and stuff. I'll have a video on that soon. But I have a Tesla. I bought a 400,000 mile M5. Of course, I got all my Mercedes. Something I don't show on the channel very often is my LS stuff. So I have my Eco Vet that we tune for 40 MPG, and then I tune my own 9-second turbo Trans Am. But anyway, a lot of you guys, when am I going to get an Audi? I don't know. Whenever I find one that I really like, this is the first RS car that I've ever driven. I really have only been in a couple Audis in general in my entire life. So I really, really like this. I don't know if I would get an RS7, but I want to hear from you guys, you Audi, Volkswagen guys out there. If you watch my channel, you know I'm big into reliability. I know that makes no sense in the world of Euro cars, but relative to European, German performance cars, you know, I've said this before, I think my E55 is pretty reliable. It has a bulletproof engine and transmission. So what in the Audi world is kind of the equivalent to the E55 or the M113 V8 from like the mid early 2000s on the Mercedes, something that is just considered by everybody to be bulletproof. Love or hate Mercedes, everybody knows those engines are rock solid. So what is that in the Audi world? I know in the early 2000s and whatever, in the whole 2000s, these things were just a nightmare overall with timing chain issues and whatnot. But is there a somewhat reliable RS car or whatever performance model Audi? Comment down below. Let me know what you'd like to see on the channel that isn't ridiculously expensive. You know, I normally buy kind of like cheaper budget cars like my C63. Now that it's fixed up, it's maybe like a $20,000 car, something like that. So what's a good budget Audi? Let me know in the comments section. And if I find a good deal, maybe at an auction, you might see it on the channel.